Maticus Guy asks, how far do you extrapolate those alternative technical paths? This from earlier when we were talking about, extrapolating your technology, figuring out what level it's at, how far does it integrate within society, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm working up a Baroque clockpunk setting, and the idea of creating an internally consistent world is really fascinating, but oh so very daunting.
Right. And that is like I was saying before, it's actually a question you need to ask yourself. Because if like when I wrote Powder Mage, I very specifically was writing a book that I wanted to finish the book, send it to agents, get an agent, get a publisher, have that book be the start of my career. That's what I was writing that book for, and nothing else. Uh, there are a lot of writers out there that don't get talked about that much. A lot of writers who are writing for themselves. They're writing because they find it fun. They like the mental games they get to play and the puzzles they get to solve. And so if you're the type of writer who is writing for yourself, then do it as much as you want. Create as big of a world with as in depth of a of extrapolation as you can possibly do over the next 20 years. That's great. If you're writing for publication and you're really trying to keep things tight narratively, then extrapolate to the point that the story needs it. You will having something like a beta reader, having people that are willing to look at your book. If you're willing to try your friendships enough that you make all of your friends read your books, then people and you yourself can do this as well. People are going to find gaps. They're going to find little places where you didn't extrapolate enough, where a question mark shows up in their brain as they're reading, and they say, okay, but if the world's like this, then why didn't this particular thing happen? Why wasn't this particular piece of technology used or this bit of magic used to solve this problem? Or maybe in this world, if it's internally consistent, it's that there should not be a problem. This problem that they've introduced is a false problem. It should be, it's the cell phone thing. If half of the people on TV would just pick up their cell phone and call somebody, so many things would get taken care of. And so you've got to look for the big glaring errors like that. But if you're writing for publication, you want to be thorough enough, and that is a really hard line to say where it is. You want to be thorough enough that the reader does not scratch their head, that they don't say, huh, why, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But you don't want to be so thorough that you waste huge amounts of your own time, and you're creating these little spider webs that go so deep into your universe that they're never going to come up and they don't matter. And if you want to do that, it's great. It's fine. But think about what your personal goal as a writer is, and where you're trying to go with that. An internally consistent world, like I was mentioning, like I had a problem with that for Promise of Blood, my first book. There are a few bits and pieces inside Promise of Blood that are totally not consistent. I got away with it because of the rule of cool, because they looked cool, because they felt cool, and they felt like they fit, kind of. And so people, occasionally somebody will say, oh yeah, this thing doesn't feel like it fits. And I'll say, oh yeah, you're right. Because I try to be very honest with myself as a writer, but then the subsequent books, you'll see with like Crimson Campaign and the books that follow, I try to be far more consistent, and I try to take the world that I established in Promise of Blood and stick to the rules that I had created. and and that's me trying to be a better writer, it's and you have to remember you're writing for an audience, um and that's kind of the end of it,
Yeah.
is that once it's out of your hands, you can't have readers coming back to you and saying, hey, you did this wrong. And your responses are either, well, you're not reading very well, because that totally happens all the time, where readers will say, yeah, you did this wrong, and I'll say, but it's explained earlier in the chapter. Yeah, work on your reading comprehension. So that's definitely a thing, but you try not to be smug about it. um, but you also have people come to you, and you can just say, well, yeah, you're right, I screwed up here as the author. um, and so keeping things tight is how I like to do it. But yeah, it's your own personal choice, and if you are writing for publication, and you're just going everywhere, you're shooting off in every direction, and you do get an agent or an editor, they're going to look at you and say, yeah, please tighten this up. None of this stuff that you mentioned in this chapter actually matters to the story. It's cool world building, but make it move the narrative forward.
Right, exactly. And you know what? World Anvil exists. You can always put in the end of your book, for the full world, go check out worldanvil.com/your world here, whatever it is. Like, that stuff isn't necessarily lost, but if it doesn't need to be in the book, don't put it in the book, and don't feel like you need to create everything. I think that's really important. Like, don't do a Tolkien, don't get lost in your world building, create what's necessary for your end product, whether that's a campaign setting or a book or whatever it is, but don't feel the lure of the rabbit hole. And if you want to write yourself notes, write notes, that's fine. But and then just, oh, I had an idea about the origin of this, great, write a quick note, that's all you need. Do not drive yourself crazy with this. Yeah, I think you're absolutely on the money there, Brian, with that. To
Okay,
Rika.
real quick.
Sorry.
I had a real quick. I want to share a really dumb anecdote.
Bring
This is so my next universe is based around an industrial magic that is created. These little baubles that are created that basically enhance your natural abilities.
Cool.
Depending on what the magic is that's kind of mixed in with the glass making process. Anyways, so this is applicable to the rabbit hole of where you're not gonna use it. Uh, is that I've got these little baubles, this glass that can be made to enhance people, and I had somebody ask me, well, what is this was like a few months ago when I was talking about it on a panel. I had somebody ask me, okay, what's a thing in that world that you're never going to use? And it just jumped right into my mind. Oh yeah, people would definitely have sex toys made out of this. And it's just like, it's a thing that will never be mentioned in canon, because that's not the kind of book I write.
Right.
But I kind of think it's hilarious. But it's definitely would be a thing, because that's just how humans are.
Funnily enough, somebody mentioned in the chat as well, when I was talking about think about personal gain, think about these things, somebody was like, there would definitely be pornography of something or other, which incidentally is something that I loved about Blade Runner, is that, you get like these sort of weird sort of sex places, pornography places, which makes total sense.
Right.
And particularly for that kind of like gritty, edgy cyberpunk world, obviously they wanted to play that up, but it honestly, like, you see it now with sex bots. The minute that we have that kind of technology, somebody's like, I want to have sex with it.
Well, that in the Blade Runner sequel, the companion, what I don't remember what it was called, but the little companion thing he had, it was so incredibly humanizing. Like, it felt so real to what it means to be human and to be lonely and all of that. And that's an instance where that bit of world building, incredibly necessary and incredibly fantastic to developing the main character. I just I love that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Tirika asks, what do you think about the side effects of magic / technology, like radiation or pollution with technology, or magic corrupting people, or maybe burning the user from the inside, or all of these other sort of tropes that we see with this kind of thing? How would you approach something like that?
Read my next series.
Boom! There we go.
It's actually very applicable because I have basically what the magic system I just described. It has levels. It's called resonances. So you get these little magical baubles, this stuff. It's called God glass. And you have low resonance, medium resonance, and high resonance. And basically, all of this magic that it gives you strengths and powers and the ability to think faster and be stronger, and it changes kind of who you are when you're exposed to it. But being exposed to it also slowly kills you. It's like radiation. And so low resonance is something that everybody has access to. It's very cheap. Everybody can get it. It gives you a little bit of a boost, and so and it also, you probably will get cancer when you're old, kind of thing. But medium resonance is a boost up from that. It's more expensive, it's harder to get, but it also makes it's much better, and it affects you in a far stronger way. But if you use it for a couple of days, you're going to start throwing up, and you're going to feel sick. It's going to take you a week to recover.
So it's very caustic on the body. Yeah.
Right, it's caustic on the body. And then high resonance is basically you can use it for 2 minutes, and then it might kill you. Like it's just it, but also for those 2 minutes you will be superhuman in some way. If you have a piece of purple god glass, you're going to be a human computer. You will be able to make every calculation that you have information to make. But if you use it for longer than a minute or two, it's going to turn you into sludge. And so that's an example from something I'm literally working on right now. It's a thing, like I think Brandon Sanderson actually has a lecture specifically on this. It's the consequences of magic.
Interesting.
What's the backlash? What is it that makes magic hard to use, or makes it so that there's some kind of a consequence that's gonna what price do you have to pay to make this magic a thing? And so that's the price I'm working on in my world. And because it is it's a magic that's accessible to everyone, the special people in my world are basically people who are resistant to this magical radiation. They're not immune to it, but they can use God glass for far longer periods of time than normal people can. And it's a kind of an innate ability.